and an other guest, Jason Boyd.
Hey.
And today we're discussing underrated films, some of our favorite underrated films. Movies that didn't get the play, didn't get the accolades, didn't get the awards, but which resonate with all of us and stay with us. And I'll just start with a couple of mine, and then Armin and Jason, please chime in, because we're all coming from various viewpoints. I'll start off with a movie called, I think it's 96, a movie called, a Ted Demme movie called Beautiful Girls.
Oh, cool.
With Tim Hutton and a very young and wonderful Natalie Portman. An underrated film. It's a relationship film about a young man who goes back to his hometown in upstate New York for a class reunion, and all of the people from his past, and this young girl, 13-year-old girl who lives next door, on whom he develops a crush. It's not skeevy, and I highly recommend it. Whenever it's on, I watch it because of the writing and the acting. Armin, you want to join in?
Yeah. Let me pull up my list. I think one of the most underappreciated movies in the last 10, 15 years probably is Eastern Promises. It's Viggo Mortensen, not Nicole Kidman, Naomi Watts, and it takes place in New York, and it's about Russian immigrants and the Russian mob, and it's so well done, and it's freaking accurate. And the scene in where Viggo Mortensen fights a guy in the Russian steam bath or the Turkish bath is freaking incredible, and no one ever talks about it. It's genuinely a good movie.
And that scene stays with you because it's so realistic?
Well, I mean, it's basically Viggo Mortensen's in a steam room, and spoiler alert, the mob is trying to kill him, and he and this other guy they fight naked essentially, and they kick each other's ass. Like, it's such a well done scene, and it's not a weird like, oh my god, they're naked, they're weird. It's really just like they're in the shit situation, and they're just they're in a bad situation, and they're just fighting for their lives. They don't care that they're naked. They don't care that they can't see anything. They're just trying to survive.
It sounds like it's really, really visceral. Like the audience is in that room with them.
It's like you're on the edge of your seat the whole time.
Eastern Promises. Take notes, people. Jason, what's on your list?
Yes, I have a film that it's a little different than I think both of the films you guys have mentioned, because it was a film that came out and a lot of people talked about it, but it was a kind of a flop. Everybody saw it and said that movie was a piece of crap. That's a movie called Smokin' Aces. And I can admit that it probably wasn't the greatest movie out there, and it had flaws.
Is that Jason Statham?
Jason Statham, no. This is Ryan Reynolds and Jeremy Piven. Jeremy Piven was like this gambler or something that had made just a bunch of money, but he was like all these assassins were after him, and it's like all the world's top assassins, and each one was a really distinct character and a very weird person.
There was a lesbian assassin in there.
The two lesbians and the three redneck brothers that played Ace of Spades.
That is a good movie.
The one who was played by a guy named Tommy Flanagan, who I loosely know, and he was like a master of disguise, so he always wore like masks and stuff. And Ryan Reynolds is an FBI agent who's like trying to make sure that he stays safe.
Speaking of underrated, I think Ryan Reynolds is tremendously underrated as an actor. He's got a great comic gift and then also a serious side. Along these lines, there's a movie called The Game with Michael Douglas and Sean Penn, where they play brothers. I can't even begin to describe it because it's a spoiler. It's about a very wealthy man, Michael Douglas, and his ne'er-do-well brother who pops up in his life. And Michael Douglas has a birthday, and his brother, played by Sean Penn, gives him the most incredible present. It is a film where you have to suspend a lot of disbelief, but it is so well done, and it is so unusual. The plot is so unusual, and I think what I'm hearing, even though we're just starting, is, for me, the writing. It always starts with the writing. It always starts with a really, really strong script, because I often have said this, and I'm saying the obvious. There are many, many wonderful actors in this town, and any film that's out there could have been cast with a different cast of actors, and it would still be a good movie. And there are many, many, many great directors out there, but there aren't that many good writers. The pool is much smaller. So for me, it always starts with the script, and of course, then it's all in the execution. But it's really hard to ruin a really good script, in my opinion. Yeah. Especially if you've got a good editor. in the editing room can tighten things up, but a really good script is the basis for everything.
It also really helps when you have a really great actor, which I can segue into another underrated movie. I think that's slightly underrated, where you just don't hear about it as much as I think you could. Like Days of Thunder. It's I saw it for the first time about a week ago. Super exciting. It's really simple. It's just about NASCAR. I don't know anything about NASCAR, and I was hooked into it. And again, it's another movie where Tom Cruise is a freaking movie star, and you see it. Anybody else who played that role, anyone else rolling up on a motorcycle, like onto the racetrack, it wouldn't have worked.
Well, Robert Towne wrote that.
Sort of like J.K. Simmons in Rush. He was able to get that part. I mean, you could have maybe had the dude from Full Metal Jacket try and attempt to do that, but he was the one that really brought that home.
That's a movie where a movie star carries that film. I mean, in our house, his name is a big joke, Cole Trickle. But sometimes a movie star is larger than life and can carry a film that may not have as strong a script. I have another film called Boogie Nights.
I haven't seen Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights got good reviews.
Yeah, I was going to say, Boogie Nights
but there's a whole segment of people who won't see it because it is about, it's about the family. All drama is about the family. And it's about this family of porn people who make porn movies back in the 70s. I think that's where it starts. But it is so brilliantly done, and also it's got a lot of quote distasteful things in it. I mean, it's a really
it's a movie about porn.
It's a movie about porn, and it's got drug scenes. There's a murder in it. There's a lot in it. I highly recommend it. A lot of people's sensibility offends people's sensibilities, and I think it's a great film. And it was Paul Thomas Anderson's second film after the movie that has the name 8 in it. I can't remember. Hard 8. Or something like that with Gwyneth Paltrow.
No idea.
I'm a big Paul Thomas Anderson fan. Also, Punch Drunk Love, in which Adam Sandler did not play Adam Sandler. Have you seen that?
I highly recommend it. The title sounds familiar. I don't remember.
Emily Watson and Adam Sandler. So name another one.
The Rundown and Walking Tall. They're movies from about 2003, 2004. The Rundown is with The Rock and Sean Astin Scott, and it's basically The Rock is an enforcer for this mob guy, and the mob guy's like, go find my mess up of a son. He's somewhere in Brazil. Bring him back home. For whatever reason, he wants him back home, and you can tell that there's something sinister going on underneath. So The Rock's like, all right, fine. So he flies to Brazil, finds a guy, gets into this chaotic adventure with Christopher Walken. Running a mining operation in Brazil, and Sean Astin, it's genuinely entertaining. Sean Astin Scott is great in it. The Rock is great in it, and it was before he became mini Gigantor, and before the Fast and Furious. So it was just one of his earlier movies, and it's just it's fun to watch. Same thing with Walking Tall. He plays this guy who grew up in a local town. He went to the army. He came back.
They did a remake of Walking Tall.
Yeah.
Buford Pusser. Was that his name? Because that was the name of...
I think so. I don't remember.
The original with Joe Don Smith. Yes, back in the 70s. There was a series of Walking Talls.
I don't remember if they kept his name.
Yeah.
But
he's a sheriff, right?
Yeah. Essentially, he comes back from the army. He sees his town has become corrupt.
Right.
Like that childhood bully that I always knew is now running the entire town, shut down the mill. He's running a casino, and The Rock becomes the sheriff and just breaks everybody's knees and brings the town back to its good old wholesome American roots. And it's
nothing's more wholesome than breaking a couple of knees.
Yeah, really. And you want to know something? I don't say this with any derision at all, because I have 2 sons. And I'm surrounded right now by boys. There are boy movies out there that I think satisfy the male need for action and revenge and heroism. And I think as a woman, I can relate to them because they're entertaining.
The Walking Tall is definitely a movie that satisfies your need for heroism. Because he goes in there and saves that town and brings it back to its glory days.
I'm going to name a film from either the late 80s or early 90s that has a moment that is so frightening that you jump out of your skin. It's called Shattered, with Bob Hoskins and Tom Berenger. And this talk about suspension of disbelief. It's about a man who has a car accident and has plastic surgery, and his face is made into the face of another person. And there is a scene that is so frightening. It's like when the shark appears in Jaws and you jump out of your skin. I highly recommended that. I also wanted to touch on a film that obviously is not underrated, but is underrated in a certain aspect, and that is Groundhog Day.
Oh, love that film.
Now, Groundhog Day, we all know the story of Groundhog Day. Lessons learned, he becomes a better man. It's funny, it's touching, it's moving. But it is also used in churches and synagogues and spiritual groups and in classes and Sunday schools. It's a highly, quote, spiritual film.
Because he's in purgatory?
Because he's in purgatory because of who he is. And that when he learns to become a better person, he's released from it and finds some happiness and fulfillment. And it's about, we have the ability to change, whether you do that through God, if you believe in God, or whatever it is you believe in, that we all have the capacity to change and be better people. But until we do, we will be living in some sort of hell or purgatory. And so I think that when you're when you're enjoying it, I also think that, movies are not supposed to be didactic. They're not supposed to give us a message. But I think that the message is so strong that it stands the test of time, and it is also used by teachers and religious and spiritual groups to show people the possibilities that we're in charge of our own lives and we can change. And his changes are hilarious, and yet it's very, very touching and very, very moving, when you think about it. So looking at that film from that perspective, that could be called underrated.
Going from a Groundhog Day, another Groundhog Day-esque movie, sort of, which I think is underrated, is Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is essentially Groundhog Day, but set in way sci-fi thing.
Groundhog Day for the science fiction wars.
When that movie was first coming out, the marketing did it no justice because I didn't have any desire to see it. I thought the title was weird, but then I was at home and I was bummed out about something about work, and then I turned and I was going through Netflix. I'm like, let's watch Edge of Tomorrow. Why not?
Is it still on Netflix? Because I haven't gotten a chance.
I think
you
so.
know what it sounds like? Edge of Night. It sounds like a soap opera.
That's my issue with the title was. The title makes absolutely no sense with the movie. But I watched it.
If you think about it, because they can't get to the next day in the same way as Groundhog's Day, he keeps having to repeat. I mean, obviously, with the result is death and not just going to sleep. But he can't quite get to finish
his task.
What's going on. Yeah. So he's just on the edge of his new day. So that's where the title comes from.
Yeah, it's
still a bad title.
It's a business. It's a business school title.
Well, they renamed it when it came out.
Yeah, Live, Die, Repeat, which sounds so much cooler.
The thing is, Live, Die, Repeat was always the subtitle. It was the log line,
right?
Or the tagline on the posters for Edge of Tomorrow. And people
wasn't that what the book? Isn't it based on a book or something?
It's based on a Japanese comic. And I don't know what the Japanese comic was called. I don't remember.
For those of you who haven't seen the movie, it stars Tom Cruise and
Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt, who looks freaking great in the movie.
Oh, she looks great.
And the whole premise is Tom Cruise is this army general in this futuristic war with humans against aliens, and he's a PR person. And for some reason, the army decides to throw him into the battle because there's this big D-Day-like invasion that's going to happen where the human beings are going to just take over and call it a day, and the war's going to be over. And Tom Cruise gets thrown into it. He kills this special alien, and the blood of the special alien allows him to basically, every time he dies, he regenerates and starts the day over again. So he goes from this wimpy little general to, by the end, just this ass-kicking badass of a guy who's just an alien killer, and then he goes through and he ends the invasion, and it's really generally a good damn movie.
Because he's training the entire time. He sucks, and then he gets a little bit better, and he gets a little better, almost like his life is
the first time he dies, and then he comes back and he's like, okay, I'm about to die here, and then he maneuvers, and then he dies again, and then he learns. And
it's an awful lot like playing Dark Souls for those of you who tune in and also play video games.
Well, here's a film that's not underrated, but I think it comes under the heading of a love story, and that is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
I'm sorry, what? I think I heard you say Planes, Trains, and Automobiles as a love story.
Oh, it's definitely a love story. It's a love story between Steve Martin and John Candy, and it's not.
I've seen a bit of it when I was 10.
Have you seen it?
I haven't seen the full thing.
I've seen it, but I don't remember most of it. I remember the Coke bottle. I remember the big guy in the little coat. Unless it's a different John Candy movie.
No, it's a different John Candy movie.
It's a John Candy movie.
Oh, it's not?
It's
my mistake.
It's a John Hughes, another funny large man. It's a John Hughes film about trying to get home for Thanksgiving. And these two, and then there's uptight, tightly wound Steve Martin, and then there's the curtain ring salesman who's seen it all, John Candy, and how they clash in their adventures on the road. and it's got a very touching and powerful ending. But it is a love story between these two men who finally wind up becoming friends.
I just realized that
if you haven't seen it, watch it.
I just realized that they sort of remade that one with Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis a few years ago.
That's basically a Planes, Trains, and Automobiles remake.
But it is not as good.
Oh, no, it's not.
Because this was a John Hughes film where, and it's hilarious. It's funny, but everything comes from character. All great comedy comes from character and situation. And so I highly recommend, everybody has gaps in their film viewing. I am not embarrassed to say that I've never seen Lawrence of Arabia.
Really?
I've never seen The Godfather, so.
And so they're really.
Hey, I didn't make fun of you for Lawrence of Arabia.
I've never seen Groundhog Day.
I've never seen that either. You haven't?
So here we're educating each other. That these are films that we need to see.
I hadn't seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off until about a month ago.
And what did you think?
I loved it. I thought it was great. It was entertaining. Incredible. It was simple, and it was good.
And yet it has a very powerful theme with the character of the young man and his father. He has a difficult relationship with his father.
He's the real main character.
And I love the fact that they never showed the dad, because your brain just itself was just kind of like, why did they have such a bad relationship?
It fills in the gap with probably your own father for most people.
And it also has Charlie Sheen, maybe when he was just starting to take drugs.
When he had the thing in the side
and when he was still
he was so coked out of that scene.
He was so sexy. He was still attractive. The drugs hadn't ruined his good looks, and
He's still an okay looking guy
with the teeth.
I don't look at his teeth.
That scene where he flirts with where he looks at Jennifer Grey and sees her for who she is. He tells her the truth. And
instead of being horribly offended, she's like,
attracted,
oh my God.
But at the same time, she's like, whoa, who's this guy who can see through me? And as a
why
woman...
why do I enjoy that? That's weird.
And as a woman, I know why she enjoyed it. That's the bad boy who'll tell you the truth. So you just saw Ferris Bueller, so we all have gaps. You need to see the Godfather.
I do. Not part 3, though.
It doesn't exist in my book. No, they never made God. And here's the thing, I'm going to mention Jennifer Aniston, who I think is an underrated actress.
You think Jennifer Aniston, star of Friends, most popular actress in the world, is underrated?
I think she's underrated as a serious actress.
I think she gets typecast.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think that, for me, those 6 people developed from the beginning. Their comedy's hard, and their timing, of course, the writing was excellent. First 4 or 5 years of Friends, the writing was wonderful, and their timing, they created these incredible characters. And then she started doing serious things. She did a wonderful movie called The Good Girl. That is by that fellow. I can't remember his name. He did Enlightenment on Showtime. His name is Mike something, whatever, and Jake Gyllenhaal, and she plays the John C. Reilly's wife, and she works in a small Kmart-like town in the Midwest, a Kmart store, and she has an affair with Jake Gyllenhaal, who's this young cashier.
Sounds vaguely familiar.
And she was absolutely wonderful. It was her showing that she could do serious things. Yeah. She's also in...
But not in the Elizabeth Berkley Showgirls kind of way.
No. She's a very good serious actress. She also was in... Nicole Holofcener is a female director, and she's made Gandolfini's last film, which is Enough Said, with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And Gandolfini not Tony Soprano, showing that, yes, he's a great actor, because when you watched him, you didn't see Tony Soprano. He played like this regular, middle-class, nice guy, divorced guy, right, who falls in love with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And Nicole Holofcener speaks to women. She made a film called Friends Without Money. Jennifer Aniston is also in that. Wonderful performance. And then she's also in one of Edward Burns' films. He made 3 movies about the McMullen brothers, about brothers. The brothers McMullen, and She's the One, and she's in She's the One, and she's engaged to the handsome brother, and winds up at the end with the kind of schlubby guy who's nice and good to her, and that also happens for her in Friends with Money. So I just want to put a shout out to Jennifer Aniston. I think she's an incredible actress.
Okay, another underrated movie of mine, I think, is A Straight Story. I don't know if anyone's seen it. It's directed by David Lynch, starring David Farnsworth.
Wow.
Is it Richard Farnsworth?
The Straight Story about the guy in the tractor.
Yeah.
The old man. That was about 20 years ago.
It's such I think it's like 98 or something, but it's such a just a genuinely wonderful movie. The whole premise of the movie is It is Richard Farnsworth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Richard Farnsworth is like a 70-something-year-old man. He finds out his brother, who he hasn't talked to in like 20, 30 years, just had a stroke. Mm-hmm. He's on the verge of death. And he wants to go see his brother, who lives a couple hundred miles away. He doesn't want to be driven there. He doesn't want to take a bus there. He doesn't want anyone to help him. He hops on his little tractor.
Yes.
On his... It wasn't even a tractor. It was like a riding mower. He hops on his riding mower, attaches... a trailer to it, and begins his 5-mile-an-hour journey to go see his brother. And everyone's telling him, you're crazy, you're nuts, you shouldn't do it.
Just get on a bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll take you. And he refuses to do it. He does it. He meets
people.
Like
I've seen this.
It's such a genuinely sweet movie, and it's so different than what David Lynch normally does.
Yes.
But it still has a David Lynch-esque dreams exposing reality, and kind of like just small town little America, and like the core... just the heart that little America can have, or that it should have, or the small towns that David Lynch grew up. It's such a dedication to people. And no one ever talks about it.
It's so interesting that the director of Blue Velvet made a
Blue Velvet, Elephant
film.
Man, Wild at Heart,
right.
Inland Empire, Mulholland Drive.
That's really, really interesting when a director takes a turn, or like a right turn into something else, and is like he's accessing something in himself that maybe he's suppressed.
And here's a really interesting in the movie. With David Lynch, all of his movies correspond to something that happened in his life. When Blue Velvet came out, it was right after he did Dune, which was a completely different than what David Lynch wanted to do, because he had done Eraserhead and then the Elephant Man, and then he did Dune. And Dune being a spectacular $40 million Dino De Laurentiis production and a failure, Blue Velvet was David Lynch coming back to his roots, coming back to Little America, coming back to characters, coming back to story, coming back to, it seems fine on the surface, like that opening shot where he's zooming into the grass. It seems cool, it seems nice, and then all the bugs underneath. Everything looks great on the surface, but underneath, it's corrupt and scandalous. And that was David Lynch himself going back to his own roots, because he moved back home for a bit. So by the time the Stray story comes around, he's older. He's 20, 30 years into his career. He no longer wants to be the independent guy, the independent spirit. He now wants to settle down with his daughter and with his granddaughter. His daughter and his granddaughter move into his house. He builds a playpen for him. And at that time, he's reconnecting with his family. He's reconnecting with his roots. And the Stray story is about Richard Farnsworth connecting with his roots, connecting with his family.
That's really
all of his movies interconnect with some point in his life.
Is he directing anything lately?
He was going to do some show for it was for HBO, but I think they halted production on it for a bit, or they're rewriting the script or something. But he was directing some show for HBO. I don't know if he's doing another feature. I hope he does.
Jason, you got anything else?
I do. This is a film I don't know if it's underrated or not. I saw it when I was like 9 years old. And it came out in 1997. It's a movie that I don't think a lot of people have seen because it was a very low-budget Canadian horror film. They made it for $350,000, which I guess nowadays would be, $500,000, even $750,000. Inflation's not my strong suit. It's a horror film called Cube. And basically it's a science fiction film where every single room in the entire film is the same. It's just a cube room. The walls are lit up. They're different colors. So like one room is orange, one room's blue. And a bunch of people, they have no idea who, they're all strangers, they have foggy memories, they all wake up in this cube, and they're all alone in these rooms with hatches on each wall. Floor, ceiling, all four walls, there's 6 ways out of every room, and each room they go into is a different color. They're like, what's going on? Some of the rooms are rigged with traps. It's a very violent movie. It's like Saw meets like a Kafka-esque weird... It's very strange. So all the strangers meet up together, and then they're saying, like, oh, we're trapped in this cube. What is it? How do we get out of here? And they all have dangerous secrets, and one of them knows more than he's letting on, and they find out as they go. And basically, it's the struggle of, like, these 6 or 7 individuals that don't know each other to try and escape this giant death cube that... Every time they go into a room, they have no idea whether the room's going to catch on fire or whether it's just going to be a regular room.
Oh, my goodness.
There's the tunnels between each room have these little numbers in them, and they're trying to figure out what the numbers mean. They start to figure, maybe it's a map, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, and they start leaving like breadcrumbs so they know where they've gone. And, everything goes wrong when suddenly they go through a hatch they've never been to before and they see some of their breadcrumbs. and they realize that the rooms have been moving, and they're trying to get to the outside of the cube.
That is the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, that's cool.
They want to try to get out to the edge of the cube, and some of their people have died, and then they get to the edge of one of them, and they look out and they realize they've reached the edge, and it's a black void, and they're still inside of a much larger cube. It's scary. It's a 90-minute horror movie. And this is the same guy that ended up directing a film called Cypher, and then more recently a film called Splice. But Splice was, 300,000 times more expensive than Cube and a much more modern film. But Cube was his first thing that he did.
Wow, the way you're telling that, I'm not a big horror film, but if I could sit with someone to hold my hand, because I always need someone to grab onto, I would love to see that.
Honestly, it might be a piece of crap. I really don't. It's been so long since I've seen it. I just remember.
But it made such an impression. How old were you when you saw it?
It came out in '97. I was born in '88. I must have been no more than 10 years old at the time.
The movies, some of those.
Because I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it as we rented it from Blockbuster.
That sounds really cool.
It was.
I just wanted to, because it just came to me. Beautiful girls. Uma Thurman is in it. Rosie O'Donnell is in it. It's got a wonderful cast. Michael, the redheaded actor, I can't remember his name, from New York. Sometimes, there's so much in my head, I can't always pull things out. There is a scene with Rosie O'Donnell is underrated as an actor. I mean, she did a lot of more acting. She was in...
I have my own issues with Rosie.
She was in The League of Our Own. She was in Sleepless in Seattle, and she's in Beautiful Girls. And she has a scene with Timothy Hutton and one of his friends in a drugstore where she's shopping, and she's walking and talking. And that's a challenge.
Yeah.
She's throwing things in a basket, and she's lecturing them about what men do to women. First of all, it's brilliantly written and brilliantly shot, because they're just like captive. And they follow her. She goes through the drugstore, and she has a very specific physicality. And she's like this, and you boys, you men, and then you expect us. And she goes and she checks out, and she stops to talk to the checkout guy. Tell me your wife, blah blah blah. And she's crossed, and she has a final line, and then she disappears. And this, I would like to see this woman act some more, because she's a former stand-up. She's a very fine actress. I have issues with her outside of her acting. We don't have to go into that. But I think that, speaking of underrated, we could talk about underrated actors,
My issue with Rosie, and it has nothing to do with her acting. I do think she's a great actor. I watched her all the time as a kid. Like, she hosted the Nick Choice Awards or the Nick Teen Awards, or whatever the heck it was called. My issue with her is the same issue that I had with Kelly Clarkson, with Christina Aguilera, with a lot of people who let something that people criticize about them define who they are. And what I mean by that is, like Rosie being loud and big and whatever, people will criticize her for it, and rather than saying, okay, so what, that's what I am, she would be like, oh no, you have to accept everything about me. You have to accept this, you have to accept that. Same thing with Kelly Clarkson, when she gained a little bit of weight. Rather than saying, yeah, okay, whatever, I can still sing, screw you, I'm going to sing anyway, I don't care what I look like. She was like, no, you have to accept me, you have to respect me. And I know we're going off topic, but it bugs me when you just...
You don't like that they got defensive.
Yeah, when you get defensive. Like, I'm short. People say stuff about me being short all the time, and if I fight it, it defines me. I say, okay, yeah, I'm short, whatever. Let's go. Like, let's move on with our day so we can get our job done. But that's my issue with Rosie. Okay. I think she's entertaining. I think she's great. I watched her all the time as a kid. I just wish she wasn't so defensive, so she could still be around.
Yes, I agree. I just wish she'd act some more, because I always enjoy watching her on screen. And her stand-up, boy, she had 20 years ago, her stand-up was hilarious. You got another one, Jason?
No, not yet. I'm frantically searching.
I got two underappreciated horror movies. Funny Games. I don't know if anyone's seen that one. And The Orphan.
Haven't seen either.
Oh, The Orphan. Is that the one with Vera Farmiga?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Funny Games. I think it's a Canadian movie actually, but it's basically about these two prep school looking guys in their 20s. Essentially, they go around and like knock, and they're like, "Oh, hey, we need some sugar." Okay, yeah, hold on a sec, and then they go in there. It starts Naomi Watts, the guy from Lie to Me. What's his name?
The one he was also in the.
He was also in Pulp Fiction and the Hulk. Yeah.
I forgot his name. Well, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, though. And they go in there.
Tim Roth.
Yes, Tim Roth. They go in the house. They hogtie the couple. They basically torture him for a few hours, And it's just it is just creepy. And the one really interesting thing the movie does is you're sitting there watching it, and all of a sudden Naomi Watts or one of the characters will pop up and do something and like kill one of the guys or knock him out and like essentially save the day. And then that main character will get up and be like, no, hold on, rewind. This is what actually happens.
Oh.
And then it's just so much more worse than what you imagine. And it's like there is no happy ending in this movie, and you just gotta be like, oh, like it's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with monsters. Like it's not in the dark. You see everything that happens, and it's just absolutely terrifying. And the Orphan I really like because I thought it was well directed. Basically, the whole premise is this couple adopts this girl from Eastern Europe who's about 10, 11, and all these weird things start to happen. And it turns out the girl, it wasn't really a girl, she's like a 40-year-old woman who has this disease that makes her look like she's 40.
Oh,
and
that is awesome.
She essentially tries to kill off the wife to marry the husband.
Oh,
There's a great scene where this kid is sitting there smoking a cigarette, like, revealing that she's a 40-year-old woman after she took out her fake teeth, and, like, she's, like, smoking a cigarette, but the director did a really interesting thing where you're sitting there and there's always those cliche horror movie moments where someone goes to the bathroom, opens the medicine cabinet, and then you close it and something scary happens.
Yeah.
It builds up to that. It opens. You think something scary is gonna happen. They close it and nothing happens. They just walk out of the bathroom into their bedroom and start having a conversation. And it happens over and over again.
So you're sitting there the whole time going,
and then when something scary does happen, it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, because you've gotten used to, you've been lulled into a sense of false security. That's awesome.
There's a movie that is full of surprises. Every 15 minutes, every 20, the reveals come, and it's a shock, and that's Wild Things, which has layers and layers of reveal of things are not what they seem, of people colluding and who's on whose side and who's really on this one's who's trying to get their way, and the ending is very, very, very satisfying. Have you seen it? Wild Things
bits and
with
pieces.
Matt Dillon and Neve Campbell.
I think I've seen parts of it. I feel like at the time that I watched it, it was like I shouldn't have been watching it. I was only watching it for the naughty parts.
Yeah, I highly
And then Matt Dillon
that.
comes out, and I'm like, oh, I regret this.
Yes,
I'm 9 years old, and this is weird.
Really. And then there's another film that totally different that is underrated. That is a wonderful love story, and and as a Jewish woman, I can relate very much to the cultural things. It's called Delancey Street. And it was made in the 80s, and it stars Amy Irving and Peter Riegert. He plays Sam the Pickle Man, and she plays a young woman who works in a bookstore, and it's their love story. But what I love about it is that it's, first of all, it was fresh, original, and different, and that the execution of, she has an old grandmother, an old bubby, whom she comes down to Delancey Street on the Lower East Side to take care of, to look in on, and the bubby's like very active and very nosy. And Peter Riegert plays a religious young man. They're both in probably their late 20s, and he's Sam the Pickle Man. He and his brother run a pickle business that they inherited from their father. And it's so refreshing to see someone who is religious portrayed as he's of this world, but he's also a religious Jew. And how she fights being in love with him because he isn't what she thinks she wants. And then when she discovers that he's much smarter than she thinks he is, and that he's much more insightful, and he's a real, what we call a mensch, he's a real grown-up. It's a very, very lovely movie. So it may not be something that you two would be into, but anybody listening, young women, watch it. A lot of lessons.
I have something that's the complete opposite of that. This is a B movie that was recorded on actual videotape in 2001 and then converted to black and white. It was making fun of the 1950s B movies, and it's called The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra.
Oh my God,
it's all
I'm hearing
about
titles, things I never heard of.
It's about a scientist and his wife who are searching for a meteor that recently crashed into the mountains, and they're coming out there and like, well, Betty, it looks like it landed over there, and one of those things. And it's the kind of movie that even though it's made for no money, it's $100,000, it's so cleverly written, and there's so many witty moments. For example, in the beginning, the wife and the scientist look up, yes, what'll happen when we find this meteor? I wonder. And he looks up to the sky. We pan up to the sky. There's an obvious transition. We pan back down from the sky to another man who's also looking at the sky. He looks and says, yes, I also wonder. But he's totally by himself. So he's written as though he's responding to a character who's not in the scene at all. So much funny stuff like that. There's also two aliens that are looking for the meteor, and they've landed in a big silver 1950s rocket ship, and they're trying to pretend to be humans. But like, yes, we need to consume hydrogen dioxygen, and they're being very strange, and the other people look at them like, you guys are weirdos, but yes, come along and help us find this meteor. And there's a skeleton, and he's like a puppet skeleton, and it's voiced by the main character. It's just, it's so weird. I love it.
You're opening my eyes to all these films I've never seen. We need a secretary to take notes.
Yeah.
But let me pose this question to you. Do you think Galaxy Quest is an underrated?
I love Galaxy Quest.
Galaxy Quest. Yes.
So do we think it's underrated? Or
Absolutely.
Yes.
Galaxy Quest is one of those movies that's a real cult hit among people who are science fiction fans, and
I'm not a science fiction fan, and I love the movie.
Right. Well, that's the thing is most people who aren't science fiction fans look at it as, that's some dumb Star Trek offshoot. I don't need to watch it. Plus, I don't like Tim Allen. Blah blah blah. And they don't realize while it is based in that world, and while most of the comedy from the script happens from real stories that happen to all of these people that are in all of these real source materials, like people like weird stuff that happened on Deep Space Nine and Battlestar Galactica and so on. It's not written that way.
It has universal themes.
Yeah, because it's also real. That's the thing. Is you look at it like it's a hokey it's a show.
And when people who are pretending to be heroes actually have to become heroes, that's a very, very appealing theme.
Yeah,
I liked it.
It was incredible. I'm glad that they're finally making a sequel. I'm sad that Alan Rickman died.
Alan Rickman was wonderful in that.
Yeah, he was my favorite character.
I wonder who they would cast.
For Alan Rickman's character?
Yes.
Just cancel it. Just cancel it and let it be just one amazing film.
Just let him be gone and have a new character.
Yeah, I'm thinking they would just kill off his character probably or something.
That's probably what they would do. Or maybe the start of the film they'd be meeting at his funeral.
And Sigourney Weaver's going to be in it.
Or as far as I know, everyone is in it.
Or maybe he gets abducted and that's what they're going to look for.
Maybe.
And then it turns out he...
I also think
it turns out he died or something like in space.
Yeah. Well, they'll deal with it, obviously. Yeah. The first Santa Claus movie that Tim Allen made.
The Santa Claus.
Oh, the Santa Claus. Sorry,
I love that. Well, I'm a big Tim Allen fan anyway. I'm very fond of him.
I love the title in the movie and the play on the contract that Tim Allen essentially signs when he puts on the pants. Because in the contract, there's the Santa Claus, like clause in the contract. Or if you put on the pants, you become Santa Claus.
Yeah, right.
It's just such a clever little
absolutely
play on the.
And there's also a film that he made called Joe something, where he has to learn to be a strong guy. Oh my goodness.
Tim Allen?
Yes, IMDb. It's Tim Allen. It's Joe something, where he has to train with a trainer who's played by. Belushi. It's played by Jim Belushi.
Oh, really?
Oh, it's a very clever script.
I was going to segue into this next anyway, but Jim Belushi happens to be in the movie that I'm about to reference, and it's another holiday film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger called Jingle All the Way.
Yes, that's a funny movie.
And I think it didn't get very high ratings on IMDb. It's kind of it's a derpy movie, but it's like a fun, light Christmas movie. Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the era when he was doing goofy comedies like Kindergarten Cop and stuff like that. In particular, this movie's special to me because I auditioned for it and I almost got it and I met Jake Lloyd. So I wanted to see the movie anyway. I was like, I didn't get that part, but I want to see that. And then, of course, the success of this movie, it was successful in the sense that it made some money, but it was not a very good movie at the time. That led him to get a role in Star Wars. And Phil Hartman was in it before he got shot, and Sinbad was in it when he was still acting. So it was a very interesting little slice of weird 90s. Yeah, and it had terrible effects. Like when Turbo Man starts flying around, it's just the most comical looking thing ever. But it was fun. It was a nice little film.
I'm gonna do a throwback on this one. Two underappreciated film noir movies: No Man of Our Own and Ace in the Hole.
Ace in the Hole, yeah. Ace in the Hole, yes.
I love Ace in the Hole because
it's Kirk Douglas. It's Billy Wilder. It's like 51 or 53.
It's a genius movie. It's a film noir that's shot in the day. It takes place in the day in the desert. Basically, Kirk Douglas is a failed newspaper writer who's been run out of New York. He's in Arizona?
Someplace like that.
Yeah, he ends up in Arizona, some desert town, and he's trying to find a story that'll make him big again. And he stumbles across a story of a guy stuck inside of a mine, and he's trapped in the mine and. Kirk Douglas, as despicable as he is, he does everything he can to make that story go longer and longer and longer and longer, at this essentially sacrificing that guy's life. They could have gotten him out in 5 hours originally, but he just does everything oh no, let's dig through here. And whatever. The reason why I like it because it's shot during the day. It takes place in the middle of the desert. It's bright as hell outside, and it's still a film noir. It absolutely feels like one. There's no doubt about it. And No Man of Our Own, starring Barbara Stanwyck, I think it's directed by Mitchell Eisen. the premise of that one is a pregnant woman who's she's trying to run away from her abusive boyfriend, and she's on a train. There she meets a couple who are going to meet. The couple's going to meet the guy's parents, and his fiance has never met his parents before. That's the whole purpose of the trip. So the fiance can meet the parents. The train derails. There's an accident. The couple dies, and Barbara Stanwyck takes on the identity.
Ricky Lake. They did that with that with Ricky Lake. Yes, I can't remember the name of the film, but they redid it. But I'm sure it wasn't as good as this one.
She takes on the identity of the fiance.
Yes.
And as the story goes, eventually, eventually people find out and other stuff happens, and the abusive boyfriend comes back once he finds out what's happening and whatever.
Right.
But it's it's a really underappreciated film noir because it's such a classic film noir story.
Yeah.
Like femme fatale and all that stuff, and the interesting is why I think it's underappreciated is because of the production code, because the production code made it have a little campy, little wrapped up tie with a bow ending, and I think. If you're gonna watch it for that reason, to see how much the production code influenced movies and what the difference between someone like Billy Wilder who could creatively get around the production code, and someone who like Mr. Lyson, who was a very competent director and at one point the highest paid director in Hollywood, just went with it.
That's and what year was this made?
40 something. Honestly, I don't remember.
Sometime in the 40s.
I think it was the last movie that Mr. Lyson directed that was written by Billy Wilder. Because Billy Wilder was a writer for Paramount at one point, and he would write it, and Mr. Lyson would direct his movie. So there's a few movies that... actually, no, I think the last one may have been... The Sun Will Always Rise, or there's a... anyway, I can't remember.
Well, another film that I think is underrated because it's so quiet, it was Zodiac from 2007. With Mark Ruffalo and I think Jake Gyllenhaal.
Was that Fincher?
I thought
it was Jake Gyllenhaal.
Adrian Brody was in that too, wasn't he?
No.
Okay.
No, it's about the hunt for the Zodiac killer, and of course they never found him. But it's done so methodically and so beautifully, and the performances are excellent, and also a film mid-70s. It was Scorsese going off on a different... It was Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which you would not think was directed by Martin Scorsese, with Ellen Burstyn, won her the Academy Award, Chris Christopherson. It's about a waitress who's married to a truck driver who's not very nice and has a young son, and he is killed, and they take off from Arizona she wants to be a singer, and they're going to go to someplace in California or maybe Portland, but it's their travel and where they stop in her relationships, and she stops. It was the beginning of Alice. It was from this movie, Alice, the TV show, was based on this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because there was a Flo played by Diane Ladd, but it was much better than the TV series. And it's a lovely, wonderful film. It's a love story, and Jodie Foster plays a young friend of her son. She's got a wise guy kid, and she has a dreadful romance at one point with Harvey Keitel, and then she meets Chris Christopherson, who's the man of every woman's dream. The unmarried, handsome rancher who sees her and supports her in her career. And a lot of feminists had a lot of problems with it, but it's a very wonderful film, and it's a Scorsese film. And it's like a break from Taxi Driver, or it was before Taxi. It was right before Taxi Driver. So it was very interesting that this material attracted him. I would love to read about why, because maybe he was looking for a break after Mean Streets, but it's really a lovely film, and I highly recommend it. Another film that maybe a lot of people haven't seen is Shampoo. With Warren Beatty.
I'm confusing it with Hairspray.
Shampoo. It was written by Robert Towne, directed by Hal Ashby. I mean, our film vocabulary, everybody's got their area that they really, really know. So I'm hearing from Jason about some horror films that I would probably enjoy.
The weird thing is I don't often watch horror films.
Yeah,
these are the ones that I really like.
But these are the ones that's also from you all films. So I guess when we sit and talk about these things, we should have a secretary make notes.
I'll throw you a curveball. The one that I'm going to list now is a musical, but it's like... I don't want to call it underrated because I think everybody that's seen it has liked it. I just don't think it got a lot of attention because of what was going on at the time. It was written during the writer's strike. So nobody was doing anything.
Which one? Which writer's strike?
The one in 2008, 7, whenever that was. When it was right after I had moved up to the Valley, so it had to be within the last 10 years. And it was written by Joss Whedon, and it's a musical called Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along Blog. And the reason he called it that is because at the time there was no rules on internet content at all. And they weren't allowed to do anything theatrical. They weren't allowed to do any TV stuff at all. Everything came to a screeching halt. Nobody could work. And he said, well, there's nothing saying I can't make a web series. So screw you. I'm going to make a web series, and it's going to be a musical, and it's going to be about a supervillain who's like a dumpy supervillain. He's not very good at what he does, and he blogs about it, and it's a musical. So the first the first 7 or 8 minutes of the film is just from the point of view of the webcam of Neil Patrick Harris, who, by the way, plays a supervillain. And he's giving his daily blog, like, oh, here's an update. The gold extraction ray worked, but, the gold here is not, it's in a bag and it's liquid, so it's still got to work the kinks out of that. And he starts singing about the woman of his dreams that he meets at the laundromat when he's in his civilian clothes and in disguise and not a big supervillain. And he's in love with her, and he doesn't know how to tell her how he feels. And there's a superhero in the world played by Nathan Fillion named Captain Hammer, who's invincible. And he's just got these big arms, and he's always thwarting Dr. Horrible's plans. And Dr. Horrible just goes and sings about it and just gets really angry. And it was released in 3 parts over 3 days as a web series in Acts 1, 2, and 3. But the whole thing is 90 minutes long, basically. Is it 90 minutes long, or is it 40? Robert, how long? Do you remember how long it is?
40 minutes.
About 40 minutes. So it's not exactly a movie.
Oh, let me check.
They released it as a film on DVD, but it's very short. Anyway, it's just a very weird little cute musical about a supervillain who, even though he wants to take over the world, he's still in love with like this weird girl that he sees at the laundromat and that he's never talked to. They end up becoming friends. Captain Hammer figures it out and says, so this is what Dr. Horrible does when he's not being Dr. Horrible. And then it just
I like that Nathan Fillion was cast as a villain.
Oh, he's incredible because he's
such a babe.
The thing is, he's not a villain in the world. He's just the antagonist because the villain character of Neil Patrick Harris
is our
he's a villain because he wants to take over the world, but he's the person you're rooting for. And Captain Hammer's like the good guy, and he keeps stopping evil, but he's also a dick. And you can see that. Okay. You can see behind the scenes.
So casting him as not a nice guy. That segues into a film called Waitress.
I love Waitress.
Is that Kerry Russell?
Never seen it.
No,
who was it? Who's the lead in that?
It's
I can't remember.
Oh my God, I don't remember. Nathan Fillion's in this too, by the way. That's the segue.
He plays the doctor.
He plays the doctor, but I want to say
it's
oh my God, Katherine Heigl? No, not Katherine Heigl.
Can our producer look that up?
He's doing that. It's somebody I recognize. I could see their face.
Yes,
I can't picture their name.
We'll hear about it in a moment. It was written by a wonderful young writer who was killed tragically.
Oh my God!
She was murdered. By
Carol Russell.
Kerry Russell's in it. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. She's a wonderful, wonderful writer, and she was a young married, and she had a baby. Mm-hmm. She was living in an apartment in New York, and there were construction there, and she went to talk to the people making a lot of noise, and one of the guys. Something happened and he killed her, and
Jesus,
it's just a horrible, horrible story. And she wrote this lovely little film. One of the great things about good films or films that grab you, that you're totally into, is you're surprised, and you're not taken advantage of as a viewer, and your intelligence isn't insulted. But things aren't necessarily predictable, even when they work out well in the end, the way you wanted them to. She's married to an abusive guy, and she falls in love with the doctor. She's pregnant, right?
Yeah.
And she goes to the doctor, and it's Nathan Fillion, and who wouldn't fall in love with that, you know?
And he works out of like his house. He's got like a small little, because it's a small town.
But it's her life
thing.
Waitressing in this, and there's something about pies. They bake pies.
Oh, I know this movie. I haven't seen it, but I've seen it.
It's a lovely, quirky little movie.
Yeah.
And any time I watch anything, if I am lost in it, I still get DVDs. We have streaming and DVDs in our house, and this is how I can measure a really good film is if I'm not looking at the time on the DVD player, or if I look at it and I go, whoa, an hour and a half has gone by, because someone has taken me into their world, convinced me that it's real, and I'm invested emotionally. What happens next, how does this turn out? And so I watched Foxcatcher this past weekend. And
did you guys talk about that last week and somebody hated it? Who was it?
I can't remember.
I know. We were
here.
listening to the show in the next room, and Garen and I were here, and he heard you say Foxcatcher, and he started talking to me about how much he hated that movie. And you guys were praising it.
You know, it could have been a better movie. I was just very taken with Steve Carell's makeup.
Oh, of course.
I could not believe, because I just was mentioning that I saw Steve Carell being Steve Carell on something, and he's a really nice looking guy.
Yeah.
He's a very attractive man. And what they did to him in this movie, they said, well, let's make him like really ugly. And his eyes, and of course it's acting too, because his whole, you as a former actor, Jason, would know that you take on the persona physically.
Yeah. It's not just saying the words, it's how you move your shoulders while you do it.
And then
it's all on the hips and the lips and the eyes and thighs.
I like that.
I like that.
It's from Hail Caesar.
Oh, I like that.
It was a good little line.
No, I have not seen Hail Caesar. Who has seen this?
I wanted to, and then it came out, and I heard it was terrible. And
it wasn't terrible. It was just the way they marketed it was very misleading.
Oh.
You went in there I went in there thinking it was like George Clooney's character gets kidnapped, and then the studio puts together a bunch of people to go find him.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it felt like.
That's what the trailer looked like, for sure.
That's not what the movie was at all.
Uh-huh.
But it was still. It was still, if you're a film nerd and you kind of like want to see old Hollywood and you just kind of like
Eddie Mannix,
yeah, and it's a scene oriented movie that has really great scenes in it. The one with oh my god, what's her name? Dylan McDermott, is that her name? The one from Fargo. Oh, Frances McDermott.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The scene with Frances McDormand, where she's sitting there, where she's in the editing room. She plays an editor. And she gets her scarf cut in the editing machine, and then like the way she smokes a cigarette, because like it's just such a great scene. It's like it's why people want to work in Hollywood, because she's an absolute character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who's good at what she does and just unapologetic, and it just like just without a doubt just picks up where she left off and just like keeps going.
Well, let's segue into who's watching Fargo on television.
I haven't been wanting to. I haven't.
The first two seasons.
I haven't even seen the movie.
We were just talking that if I didn't sleep, I could see everything. But the first two seasons of Fargo,
if I didn't work, I could see everything.
Absolutely amazing. Anybody else got anything underrated?
I have one here. It's a movie that came out in 2012 called Safety Not Guaranteed. The only reason I know about this movie...
You are the master of the movie I've never heard of.
It's underrated for a reason.
Yeah, really.
It's a movie. The only reason I know about it is because one of my neighbors is a costume designer, and she ended up working on this film. And it's based on an article. No, it's based on not a column. What do I put? Like a blurb in a newspaper about an anonymous man looking for somebody to go back in time to time travel with him, and that he's only ever done it once before, and that your safety is not guaranteed. This is a real thing that was in a real newspaper. Now, it was put in there as a joke by somebody who worked at the paper, and they needed to fill space, so he just filled it with some crap. He didn't care.
I love this.
But that picture of that newspaper thing went on to become like a viral image, and they were looking at it like, well, who's this weirdo? I wonder if he went back in time, blah, blah, blah. They couldn't have the column empty, so they had to put something there. This goes on to start a plot about a film where they see this, and they hear about it, and it gets some ground behind it, and they're like talking about it. Oh, who's this guy that wrote this thing? You got to go down to the newspaper and figure it out. And it stars Aubrey Plaza, who's like this young up and coming journalist,
right.
And Mark Duplass is the guy who wrote who wrote the article, and the dude from The New Girl, I don't remember his name, Jake, whatever. Anyway, he says like, you got to get out there and we got to go do this, and they travel, and they're looking at it like it's just another story. Like, yeah, let's see if this guy's crazy. He's a nutcase. Let's follow him. Let's see what happens. And Aubrey Plaza goes in there, and she's reluctant to do it, but she's like, whatever. She's cranky and doing her typical thing. And she eventually starts to realize that maybe this guy's not so crazy after all. And even if if it's not real, he believes that it's real, and that's fascinating, and she doesn't want to like exploit him. So she starts kind of falling for him a little bit, not in a romantic way necessarily, but as I care about you as a human being, and I don't like that these people are trying to exploit you so that we can get a news story out of it. And it's a really sweet film.
Is there any actual time travel?
I can't say that.
Don't let it.
It all takes place in one weekend. We'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
How much time do we have left?
The sign says.
Okay, so we got 5 minutes. So, how about we go around and we'll just say the list of what we mentioned?
Okay. For
I'll
those
start.
listening.
So my list goes Ace in the Hole, Eastern Promises, Lucky Number 11, which I didn't get to talk about.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Right?
That's Robert's, one of Robert's favorites.
It's really good, and it's really nobody ever talks about it.
They confuse it with Seven. What's in the box?
Oh yeah. What's in the box?
Yeah.
Inside Man, which I didn't get to talk about. Walking Tall, The Rundown.
Inside Man is a great movie. Clive Owen.
Yeah, it's freaking brilliant.
Oh, Clive Owen's good in everything.
Awesome.
The Days of Thunder, Edge of Tomorrow, The Stray Story, Mutiny on the Bounty, and I only mentioned that one because of a specific character that's underappreciated.
Which one, with Brando?
No, the very first one, 1932.
Oh, the first one, Charles Lawton and Clark Gable?
Yeah. Charles Laughton character, I think, is completely underappreciated in that movie because he's a guy who's tough, but you'll learn how to sail if you listen to him. He's a dick, but he'll teach you. The Player, which I didn't get to mention, No Man Ever Owned.
The Player is not gonna. Oh, The Player's wonderful.
Oh no, I love it, but it's rarely ever mentioned. At least in my opinion. No Man Ever Owned, Funny Games, The Orphan, and Defending Your Life.
Okay, I just want to mention a film that came out recently called Wish I Was Here with Zach Braff and Kate Hudson. Once again, starts with the script about a married man with children married to Kate Hudson. She's got a wonderful character about his dying father, his life. I was home and it was on for 5 minutes and I said, well, let me just watch this. And I thought it would be terrible like Garden State, which I just didn't like at all. And I think he wrote it. It's a wonderful film. It's called Wish I Was Here and it currently is playing on cable. So I recommend that. Oh, Beautiful Girls, The Good Girl, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, Delancey Street, Wild Things, Punch Drunk Love, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Edward Burns films, The Brothers McMullen, She's the One, Boogie Nights, Shattered, The Game, and Friends with Money, and the works of director Nicole Holofcener, and also I wanted to mention the original Friday Night Lights, which spawned a brilliant TV series, and Lost in Translation, where Nicholas, not Lost in Translation, the movie with Nicolas Cage where he played the twin brothers screenwriters.
Adaptation.
Adaptation, where he was willing to make a fool of himself. Love that film. Go ahead.
I had mentioned Cube, which is a weird 90s horror film. I mentioned La Skeleton of Cadavra, which is not exactly a horror film, but also weird. Dr. Horrible Sing-Along Blog. I'm forgetting some of them. Smokin' Aces, can't forget that. Safety Not Guaranteed, and the one I didn't get a chance to mention was Children of Men, which is, I think,
good one.
It's critically acclaimed, but I don't think a lot of people saw it. I don't like it for its subject matter necessarily. I like it because it's another one of those Alfonso Cuarón, like, long shot type movies. But really, my favorite part about it was just that it takes place in the future, but it's like a believable future. It's a future where, mid-2000s sedans are still around and they're just junky pieces of crap, and that all the technology that has evolved around the world that we live in now, so it's a believable future. It's a future that looks realistic.
Yes, and one of these days we're going to have to do an hour on dystopian films where I will just sit and be silent because I don't like them.
Children of Men's pretty good.
I just remember one more. Bronson by Nicholas Winding Refn, the guy who did Drive and all that stuff.
Scott Pilgrim versus
the World.
That's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yes, our producer has let us know that's one of his favorite films.
Written by Edgar Wright, directed by Edgar Wright, almost written by somebody we know. At least that's what he says.
How are we doing?
The stories are interesting. I love that movie.
Are we done?
It's good.
Everything by Edgar Wright is underrated and amazing. Did you ever watch Spaced? Never mind, we're out of time.
Spaced. No, we're not out of time. And when you say Spaced, I'm thinking about...
Spaced is a TV series. It's a British TV series by Edgar Wright, and it stars... Edgar Wright, he always casts Simon Pegg and Nick Frost in everything that he works on, basically. And it's them, and they live in a... It's Simon Pegg and this woman whose name I can't remember, and they want to get a flat together, and they're both looking for a place to rent, and they happen to be going to the same place, and they're fighting over it, and the woman that's renting it to them thinks that they're a couple, and that's why they're bickering, and she will only rent to couples. And she won't rent to people that aren't married because they're going to be living in sin, so they have to pretend to be married, even though I think Simon Pegg is gay in the thing. I'm not sure.
It.
And then Nick Frost plays like a war hero, and there's a dude who paints naked.
You said the word space, and I know that this is not an underrated film. It's a cult film, but Office Space.
Oh, amazing.
Office Space.
Anything by Mike Judge. Idiocracy, underrated.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, God, I'm so sad that we're coming up with so many good things and the show's about to end.
Yes, really. Office Space, you can watch it over and over again.
Because everybody can relate to it.
It never wears out. I mean, it's so funny with those hilarious characters. With I love that they cast Gary Cole as that jerky boss. That'd be and he has spawned so many memes.
Exactly.
That'd be great.
The guy with the glasses, his name I can't remember.
Stephen Root.
What's
his name?
Need to play to the ground.
Yes.
And then he does. Oh, it's such a great movie.
And Jennifer Aniston.
That's right.
Once again, giving a great performance as a regular person.
Being John Malkovich. I just remember that one.
Oh,
I've never seen that.
You know what really kind of skeeved me out where they had to. It was so creepy. Yes.
So weird. It's a cool premise of a movie, though.
Yes.
Being John Malkovich,
Yeah, it is, and also the movie with adaptation. Now we already mentioned that.
Adaptation's really good.
Yes, talk about an original film, and it's based on an article in the New Yorker about orchids. you know. And that's Charlie Kaufman. That's the brain of Charlie Kaufman. And it's Nicolas Cage playing a what a great role he had.
Wild at Heart. That's around Nicolas Cage thing.
Yes,
Another
with
great
Laura
movie.
Dern.
Yeah.
Yes.
A little heavy-handed on the on the Wizard of Oz stuff, but it's really good.
Yes, absolutely.
Another David Lynch film.
We could have an hour also on the careers of actors that have gone downhill.
No,
and
that might be kind of cool. The career of Nicolas Cage. That might be a cool subject.
Are we counting down to saying goodbye to talking about our underrated films and films that we love?
I think so.
You know, we all just love to get together and talk about these things. We've been so happy to share this with you. This is Saran Fox.
This is Armin.
This is Jason David Boyd.
And we're saying goodbye from Dan and Saran Take on Hollywood. Till next time.
See ya.
Bye-bye.